Have you ever wondered what would happen if cats and humans switched places? No, I don't mean your cat stealing your bed, though, let's be honest, they already do that. I mean a full-on role reversal, where cats wear golden crowns, run governments, and build pyramids, while humans roll around in baskets, meowing at the ceiling fan. Welcome to ancient Egypt, well, the other version of ancient Egypt. The one your history teacher definitely forgot to mention. And right in the middle of all this absurd chaos is our unlikely hero, Pilo, a fat, adorable orange cat with a belly that jiggles like jelly and a face that could judge you harder than your grandma at Thanksgiving. So grab a blanket, curl up like a confused human in a basket, and let's dive into the story of Pilo in ancient Egypt, advisor to the cat goddess. Trust me, it's going to be gloriously stupid. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine ancient Egypt. Not the Egypt from history books with stiff-looking pharaohs, endless sand, and tour guides yelling, "Don't touch the pyramid." No. I mean our Egypt, an Egypt where reality took a nosedive into absurdity and never bothered to climb back out. The sun is setting over the desert, painting the sky in gold and pink, the pyramids glowing like giant triangle-shaped nightlights. The Nile shimmers like a lazy snake that just had too much hummus for lunch. It should be majestic, right? It should scream, "Here is the cradle of civilization." But instead, what you actually see is cats. Cats everywhere. Cats walking upright in silk robes. Cats strutting in golden sandals. Cats holding tiny scepters shaped like fish bones, having heated debates about tuna distribution like they're senators. Meanwhile, the humans? Oh boy. The humans are not philosophers, not kings, not pyramid builders. Nope. They're pets. Oversized, hairless, slightly confused pets. You see them sprawled on rooftops, meowing at nothing, chasing beams of sunlight across walls, or scratching up woven mats like it's their life's purpose. One man is literally hanging from a curtain, flailing, refusing to let go, while two cats clap politely from below, whispering, "Such form, such grace." Truly, the perfect human specimen. This world is upside down, inside out, and possibly drunk on fermented goat milk. And right in the middle of it all, waddling with the slow grace of a meatball rolling down a lazy hill, is our hero, Pilo. Now, let's get this straight. Pilo is not just any cat. Pilo is a chubby orange cat with an irresistibly adorable appearance. His fur shines like the desert sunset, his cheeks puff out like little bread rolls, and his belly, oh, that glorious belly, sways side to side like it's got its own gravitational pull. When Pilo sits, he doesn't just sit. He plops. A full, committed belly-first plop that could shake the foundations of a small pyramid. And when he looks at you with those half-lidded eyes, you don't see wisdom. You see judgment. Pure, silent, smug judgment. Naturally, this makes him the perfect candidate to be advisor to Bastet, the great cat goddess. You'd think a goddess would want someone lean, elegant, sharp as a dagger. Nope. She picked a living pumpkin with fur. Why? Because he's adorable. Because when Pilo purrs, even divine ears melt. And maybe, just maybe, because Pilo is the only one who dares to say things no other cat will. Like, what if we just don't finish the pyramid? Call it modern art. Or, you know what would solve the food shortage? Eat fewer human snacks, eat more fish. Revolutionary stuff. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, you need to see this world the way Pilo does. The streets of Cat Cairo are buzzing. Cats of all breeds stroll about like furry aristocrats. A group of regal Siamese argue over whether the Nile tilapia tastes better raw or roasted. A Persian cat fans herself dramatically, complaining about all this disgusting sand while living in, well, the middle of the desert. Street cats gather at corners pretending to be intellectuals, scratching hieroglyphs on walls that literally translate to, fish good, sleep better. And the humans? They're everywhere. One man sits in a basket, licking his hand and smearing it across his face, like a toddler cosplaying as a cat. Another human runs in frantic circles trying to chase his own shadow, then hisses at it, offended that it won't fight back. A third curls up on a warm stone, yawns, and refuses to move, even when a royal parade of cats tries to pass. The cats bow their heads respectfully. Truly, one whispers, the human spirit is strong in that one. And there, above it all, basking in the chaos like a sun-soaked orange loaf, sits Pilo. Perched on a velvet cushion so small it's honestly more of a suggestion than a chair, his round body spills over the sides like dough rising out of a pan. His tiny paws tuck neatly under his fluff, his tail flicks lazily, and his face wears that expression only cats can pull off, an expression that says, I could fix your life, but I won't. I'm too busy being adorable. This is where our story truly begins. Because in a kingdom where cats walk like kings and humans meow like idiots, one thing is certain, Pilo, the chubby orange wonder, is about to prove that sometimes the most absurd advisor is exactly the one a goddess needs. So, dear listener, snuggle in. Let the desert sands settle in your imagination, let the meows echo faintly in your ears, and prepare for a story where history makes zero sense, sarcasm is sacred, and chaos is worshipped. Welcome to the Age of Cats. Welcome to the Age of Pilo. If you thought cats in silk robes and humans meowing on rooftops was already strange, buckle up, sweetheart. Because in this Egypt, logic took a vacation, bought a one-way ticket, and never came back. Here, cats don't just run the show, they are the show. And humans? Well, they're basically unpaid extras in the world's weirdest sitcom. Let's start with the cats. Picture a grand assembly hall inside a pyramid. Torches flicker on walls covered in paw-printed hieroglyphs. A row of majestic cats sits on thrones, tails curled neatly like punctuation marks, each wearing wigs so tall they could house an entire bird family. They're not just sitting there purring. No, they're debating government policies. One cat slams his paw on the golden table. Fish imports are down from the Mediterranean. We must raise the tax on sardines. Another hisses back, nonsense. If we raise sardine taxes, the alley cats will riot. Do you want another yarn uprising? It's politics, but fluffier, and with way more hissing. Meanwhile, outside the pyramid, life for humans is, well, let's just say it's not on the glamorous side. Humans are kept like beloved pets, which sounds cute until you realize that means they live in woven baskets, get fed from little clay bowls, and occasionally have to perform tricks to earn extra milk. Imagine a group of grown men chasing after a bouncing ball of yarn while cats in the audience clap politely and whisper, so elegant. Look at the footwork. Yes, humans in this Egypt are judged by their ability to play with string. Harvard degree? Doesn't matter. Ability to chase a beam of light across the floor without smacking into a wall? Now that's valuable. There are even human competitions. Once a month, cats gather for the Grand Obelisk Games. It's like the Olympics but way more ridiculous. The main events? Fastest meow imitation, humans compete to see who can sound most like a cat in heat. Milk drinking contest, first one to finish a giant bowl of goat milk without drowning wins. Shadow wrestling, humans attempt to fight their own shadows. Spoiler alert, the shadows always win. The winners get extra naps on warm stone tiles. The losers? Well, they still get naps. This is Egypt, not a boot camp. Now, before you start feeling sorry for the humans, let me assure you, they don't seem to mind. In fact, some of them look downright thrilled. One guy happily rolls around in sand for 3 hours straight, purring, or at least his best attempt at it. Another climbs onto the Sphinx, curls up on its nose, and refuses to move because it's warm up here. Do the cats get mad? Nope. They call it art. And through all this madness waddles our beloved hero, Pilo. Remember him? The chubby orange cat with an irresistibly adorable face that could melt even the coldest dog's heart? Yeah, he's here, watching humans chase their tails and thinking, well, at least I'm not that guy. Pilo isn't impressed by politics or by silly games. He's seen too much. He knows the truth. No matter how hard cats try to run a civilized society, it'll always descend into chaos. Because cats, for all their silk robes and golden sandals, are still cats. Easily distracted, obsessed with naps, and ready to declare war if someone dares to touch their favorite sunbeam. In fact, just last week, a major diplomatic summit between two cat kingdoms collapsed because one diplomat knocked over a jug of milk and refused to admit it. It was gravity, he argued. The others hissed in outrage. Peace talks ended, and the cats all went home to sulk. Pilo finds all this endlessly entertaining. Sitting on his velvet cushion, he watches the humans with their silly games and the cats with their even sillier politics. He licks his paw, smirks, and thinks, if this is civilization, I'd hate to see chaos. And here's the kicker, the cats honestly believe they've perfected society. They brag about their architectural genius, pyramids built at angles so precise, you could balance a fishbone on top. They brag about their justice system, any cat caught stealing fish gets sentenced to mandatory nap time, which is exactly what they wanted in the first place. And they brag about their cultural advancements, like their latest invention, the litter box with gold flakes. Very fancy. Very itchy. Meanwhile, the humans are busy, well, being humans. A group of them has just invented the world's first laser pointer cult. They worship a red dot that mysteriously appears on walls during sunset, chasing it with religious devotion. The cats encourage it, of course. It keeps the humans busy while the cats debate serious matters, like whether tuna tastes better with lemon or just plain. And so, the great reversal continues. Cats strut through the city as rulers, humans tumble around as their pets, and Pilo, the round, judgmental orange ball of fur, naps through it all, certain that he alone understands the absurd beauty of this world. Because here's the thing, in this land of reversed roles, nobody really questions the system. The cats are too vain, the humans are too clueless, and Pilo? Well, he's too comfortable. And honestly, who can blame him? If you were a cat with royal snacks, a golden cushion, and zero responsibilities beyond sarcastic commentary, would you rock the boat? Didn't think so. So as the moon rises over the pyramids and the humans curl up in their baskets, meowing softly into the night, Pilo yawns, stretches his stubby legs, and settles in for yet another nap. Tomorrow will be just as absurd. And that's exactly how he likes it. Now, in every so-called perfect society, there's always a crack in the wall, a loose thread in the tapestry, or, in this case, a human drooling on a sacred sarcophagus. Yes, friends, the great kingdom of Cat Egypt was about to face its first major crisis. And, spoiler alert, it wasn't going to be solved by more naps. Here's the situation. The cats, in all their divine wisdom, had nearly finished construction of their grandest pyramid yet. Not just any pyramid, mind you. This one was supposed to be the ultimate scratching post for Bastet herself, a monument so fabulous that future generations of cats could look at it and say, wow, our ancestors really knew how to stack rocks. But just as the final golden capstone was about to be placed, the cats noticed something troubling. Their beloved humans, their pampered little meowing pets, had become lazy. Too lazy. And I don't mean normal lazy, like I'll fold laundry tomorrow lazy. I mean advanced level lazy. The kind of lazy where they refuse to even fake a decent meow for food. Instead, they lounged on royal cushions, snored on top of mummies, and swatted lazily at passing flies like it was the Olympic finals. One human was caught sprawled across Bastet's private throne, licking the armrest like it was an ice cream cone. Another had curled up inside the sacred canopic jar of Pharaoh Whisker. And the worst offense? A group of humans had claimed the king's sarcophagus as their personal nap zone. Imagine walking into your temple and finding 6 naked humans tangled together, purring badly and scratching each other's backs. A catastrophe. The high cats were horrified. Meetings were called, hieroglyph memos were scratched into walls, tails were puffed in panic. Cats hissed, growled, and swatted the air dramatically. "This is unacceptable," cried a sleek black cat named Meowsef. "If humans will not perform their sacred duties, like meowing at dawn or chasing shadows on command, then the kingdom will collapse." But here's the kicker, nobody actually knew what to do. The cats were experts in sleeping, grooming, and looking smug, but when it came to problem solving, they were hopeless. Their first solution? Raise the humans' milk allowance. That failed. The humans just drank more, got bloated, and slept harder. Second idea? Hire more humans. That also failed, because the new recruits immediately joined the old ones in napping competitions. The crisis deepened. Bastet herself grew restless. The goddess of cats was not used to being ignored, and when she summoned her humans to perform the ceremonial meow of worship, they responded with silence. Well, not exactly silence. One guy burped. Another rolled over and farted. That was it. Centuries of tradition, gone in one lazy afternoon. The priests wailed, the nobles panicked, and the guards sharpened their claws in frustration. And then someone, probably half joking, said the unthinkable. Maybe we should ask Pilo. Now, let me remind you, Pilo was a chubby orange cat with an irresistibly adorable appearance. Sure, he was Bastet's official advisor. Sure, he had a title and a fancy cushion. But everyone knew the truth. Pilo's main talents were eating, sleeping, and making sarcastic remarks that somehow sounded like wisdom. Yet here they were, desperate enough to put the fate of an entire civilization in the paws of a cat who once suggested making a pyramid, slightly tilted, for the aesthetic. So Pilo was summoned. He waddled into the grand hall, his belly swinging like a pendulum of doom. The nobles whispered nervously. Bastet glared down at him, her golden eyes glowing. Pilo, she said, our humans are broken. They do not meow. They do not chase shadows. They barely lick themselves properly. If this continues, my kingdom will crumble. Tell me, what should we do? Now, if you or I had been in Pilo's place, we might have panicked. We might have said, this is beyond me, your goddess. Maybe consult a priest or a contractor or literally anyone else. But not Pilo. No, Pilo licked his paw, rubbed it across his round face, and spoke with the calm authority of a cat who knows he's too cute to ever be punished. My goddess, he said, the humans are not broken. They are evolving. The hall gasped. Cats hissed in shock. Evolving? Into what? Couch cushions? Dust bunnies? Yes, Pilo continued, his whiskers twitching. They are simply embracing the truest form of being, doing absolutely nothing. They are chaos in fur-less skin. And if you want them to serve you, you must not fight their nature, you must entertain it. Now, this was either the dumbest thing ever said in the history of Egypt, or the most brilliant. Nobody could tell. Which, honestly, is how Pilo always sounded. Bastet narrowed her eyes. Entertain their nature? Yes, Pilo said. Turn their laziness into art. Make their nonsense into ritual. Let them be absurd, and they will worship you without even knowing it. The hall fell silent. The cats didn't understand, but Bastet purred. She liked the sound of it. And so, against all odds, the fate of Egypt would rest on the ridiculous schemes of one fat, adorable orange cat. Now, let's be clear about something. When Pilo said humans should be entertained, he did not mean in the traditional sense. He wasn't talking about circus acts or Netflix specials. Pilo was thinking in the way only a chubby, adorable orange cat can think, half serious, half ridiculous, and fully convinced that if it sounded profound enough, everyone would just nod and go along with it. And it worked. Bastet gave him full authority to fix the human problem. Which, by the way, is like giving your local Taco Bell cashier full authority to run the Pentagon. But hey, desperate times. So what did Pilo do? He invented a series of human training programs. And I put that in quotes because honestly, these were less like training and more like episodes of a reality show you'd only watch at 2 a.m. after 3 glasses of cheap wine. Hashtag at the School of Meowing. Pilo's first idea was, well, let's call it ambitious. He gathered all the humans in a sandy courtyard, where a choir of cats sat waiting like judges on American Idol. The goal? Teach humans to meow properly, according to social class. Aristocrats, Pilo announced, must meow in deep, commanding tones. Like this, Marrow. He gestured toward a noble Siamese, who demonstrated with the dignity of a Shakespearean actor. Then Pilo pointed at a scrappy human crouching in the corner. And peasants? You get the squeaky meows. Like, me. So the humans tried. Oh, did they try? But instead of elegant meows, what came out sounded like a bunch of broken car horns mixed with a toddler's attempt at karaoke. One human's meow was so off-key that a cat fainted dramatically on the spot. Another meow was so loud it shattered a clay milk bowl. By the end of the session, the humans were meowing at random, at walls, at the sky, at each other's feet. It was chaos. Cats argued whether this was art, torture, or both. Pilo, of course, claimed it was a success. "Look," he said, "they're passionate. That's the spirit of worship." Hashtag at the Yarn Olympics. After the meowing fiasco, Pilo decided the humans needed physical activity. "A strong human is a happy human," he declared, while grooming his belly rolls. His plan? A grand athletic event he called the Yarn Olympics. Imagine hundreds of humans chasing after giant balls of yarn rolled down the streets of Cairo. Cats lined the rooftops, betting fish on which human would trip over their own feet first. There were races, relays, and even synchronized yarn-chasing competitions. One event required humans to leap into the air to catch a dangling string. The problem? Most of them forgot how legs work mid-jump and landed face-first in the sand. The crowd of cats roared with laughter, tossing sardine confetti into the air. And yet, the humans seemed happy. They meowed, hissed, and tumbled around, rolling in the yarn like it was the meaning of life. Bastet herself watched from her throne, sipping milk from a jewel-encrusted goblet, and purred with satisfaction. Finally, she said, "Humans are entertaining again." Hashtag at the Festival of Milk. But Pilo wasn't done. Oh no, the chubby genius had one more masterpiece up his furry sleeve, the Festival of Milk. This was less of a festival and more of a binge-drinking contest, except instead of beer, it was warm goat milk served in giant clay bowls. Humans lined up, faces sticky with anticipation, while cats banged tiny drums and chanted, "Chug! Chug! Chug!" The rules were simple: whoever finished their bowl fastest would be crowned Human of the Year. The prize? A prime napping spot on top of the Great Pyramid, reserved for only the most ridiculous of pets. The humans went wild. Milk splashed everywhere, beards foamed with dairy, stomachs bloated until they looked like overstuffed bread loaves. Some humans keeled over mid-drink, snoring instantly. Others rolled around in puddles of spilled milk, purring like broken lawnmowers. It was disgusting. It was hilarious. It was, according to Bastet, the pinnacle of culture. Hashtag when chaos becomes success. Now, here's the funny part. To the untrained eye, these programs looked like total disasters. The meowing school was a cacophony of nonsense. The Yarn Olympics ended with half the humans tangled in knots, looking like rejected Christmas decorations. The Festival of Milk left the city smelling like sour dairy for a week. But in the world of Cat Egypt, this was a roaring success. The humans were active, ridiculous, and endlessly amusing. The cats purred with approval. Bastet declared it a golden age. And Pilo? Well, Pilo got promoted. Again. He strutted through the palace halls, his belly swaying proudly, while other cats whispered in awe, "That's Pilo, the mastermind who turned laziness into worship." Never mind that he mostly just sat around and came up with ideas between naps. In this world, sarcasm and chaos were the same as genius. And so, Pilo's legend grew. The humans became more absurd than ever, the cats became more smug than ever, and the kingdom of Cat Egypt purred along in ridiculous harmony. Little did they know, of course, that the true test of Pilo's absurd philosophy was just around the corner. Every kingdom has its defining moment. Rome had Caesar. America had reality TV. And Cat Egypt? Cat Egypt had the annual Ceremony of Bastet, the biggest event of the year. It was supposed to be grand, sacred, inspiring. Spoiler alert, it was none of those things. The entire city had been preparing for weeks. Pyramids polished until they gleamed like giant litter boxes. Streets swept so clean you could eat fish straight off the ground, not that anyone recommended it. Cats groomed themselves twice as obsessively as usual, which is saying something. Even the humans had been spruced up, collars jingled around their necks, bells tied to their ankles, and a few unlucky ones painted head to toe in gold paint because apparently that was fashion. At the center of it all stood Bastet's temple inside the Great Pyramid, lit by hundreds of oil lamps, filled with the smell of incense and, unfortunately, sour milk from last week's festival. It was here that Bastet herself would appear in all her divine glory, expecting worshipful meows, synchronized rituals, and maybe even a complimentary fish platter. Pilo had been tasked with making sure the humans performed perfectly. Which was hilarious, considering Pilo's idea of management was usually, let them do whatever, I'll take credit later. But this time, the stakes were high. Bastet wanted perfection. The nobles wanted order. The priests wanted divine approval. And the humans? Well, they just wanted to nap. The ceremony began with high hopes. Dozens of humans filed into the temple, each wearing little linen skirts and collars with shiny bells. They were supposed to kneel in perfect rows, raise their arms to the goddess, and meow in unison, a chorus of devotion to shake the heavens. What actually happened was, not that. The first meow came out too early, high-pitched, and cracked halfway through like a middle schooler at choir practice. The second human meowed so deep and off-key it sounded like a dying walrus. The rest panicked and started meowing at random, creating a soundscape best described as a haunted accordion being stepped on repeatedly. Cats in the audience hissed in horror. Nobles covered their ears with silk paws. One priest fainted dramatically onto a pile of cushions. And it got worse. Instead of bowing respectfully, a group of humans started chasing the reflections of the oil lamps bouncing on the temple walls. Another human spotted Bastet's sandal, made of solid gold, and decided it was clearly a chew toy. He latched on, gnawing happily, while the goddess herself blinked in disbelief. Is he biting me?" she asked, tail twitching dangerously. "Yes, my goddess," whispered a terrified noble. "It is a sign of devotion?" Pilo, lounging nearby, just smirked. "Or maybe he's just hungry." Chaos exploded. One human climbed onto Bastet's throne and began pawing at her wig. Another curled up on her lap uninvited, snoring loudly as if he owned the place. Several humans knocked over sacred vases, spilling milk and fish guts across the temple floor. The ceremonial carpet shredded into confetti within minutes. It was a disaster of biblical proportions, if the Bible had chapters about hairless apes meowing badly and biting gods. The cats were horrified. Nobles shrieked. Guards lunged at the humans, but the humans fought back, hissing and swatting like feral kittens. One even climbed up the sacred statue of Bastet and refused to come down, screeching triumphantly like he'd just conquered Mount Everest. And there, in the middle of all this chaos, sat Pilo, his round belly rising and falling as he chuckled to himself. Everyone turned to him in desperation. "Advisor Pilo," cried Meowsef, the black noble cat. "Do something. Stop this madness." But Pilo only licked his paw and said, "Why? This is the most entertaining thing I've seen all year." Bastet's golden eyes narrowed. For a moment, it looked like she might smite every human in the room and maybe Pilo too. But then Pilo, fat, fluffy, irresistibly adorable Pilo, spoke again, with that calm sarcasm that only he could pull off. "My goddess, perhaps this is not failure. Perhaps this is truth. Look at them, they are chaotic, ridiculous, impossible to control. And yet, isn't that beautiful? Humans are not meant to be perfect pets. They are meant to be absurd little disasters. And maybe that is the highest form of worship you can ask for." The temple fell silent. Cats exchanged nervous glances. Was he insane? Probably. But was he also, right? Bastet tilted her head, considering. A slow purr rumbled in her throat. Chaos as worship, she mused. Imperfection as devotion. Pilo nodded, belly jiggling. Exactly. Let them bite your sandals. Let them shred your carpets. Let them meow off-key. That's not disrespect, it's authenticity. And authenticity, my goddess, is divine. The room held its breath. Then Bastet laughed, a deep, resonant purr that shook the golden walls. "You know what, Pilo? You're absurd. But you're right." And just like that, the disaster became doctrine. From that day forward, the ceremony of Bastet was no longer about perfect meows or synchronized bows. It was about chaos. The more absurd the humans acted, the more the goddess purred. And so, out of disaster came triumph, all thanks to a fat orange cat who knew that sometimes, the only way to win is to embrace the madness. And so, the great kingdom of Cat Egypt did not collapse in flames or drown in the Nile, as many feared. No, thanks to one plump orange genius, it thrived. Not because it became more organized. Not because the humans suddenly got smarter. Oh no, honey. It thrived because the cats finally accepted what Pilo had known all along. The world is better when it's just a little bit stupid. After the ceremony disaster, now officially renamed the Blessed Chaos of Bastet, humans were no longer punished for their laziness. In fact, their naps, burps, and off-key meows became sacred acts of worship. If a human scratched up a priceless rug, priests would nod solemnly and whisper, "Ah yes, the holy unraveling." If a human chased their tail until they passed out, it was considered a divine performance piece. Bastet herself leaned into it. She swapped her rigid rituals for spontaneous silliness. Milk offerings were now served in bowls so large that humans could literally swim in them. During processions, humans were encouraged to climb statues, bite sandals, and roll in flower petals like they were reenacting a bad perfume commercial. The goddess purred more than ever, and the kingdom purred with her. And where was Pilo in all of this? Oh, you know exactly where. On his velvet cushion, of course. Napping like a royal loaf of bread, occasionally opening one lazy eye to make sarcastic remarks. He didn't need to work anymore, why would he? His legend was secure. Cats whispered his name in awe. That's Pilo, the advisor who turned chaos into religion. That's Pilo, the chubby oracle who saved Egypt by doing absolutely nothing. That's Pilo. Is he eating again? Yes, he was always eating again. Pilo's daily routine became a sacred tradition in itself. Each morning, humans would line up to fan him with palm leaves while he judged their meows. At noon, he'd waddle to the temple kitchen and demand extra fish. And in the evenings, he'd deliver pearls of wisdom, which usually sounded like, if you ignore a problem long enough, it becomes someone else's problem. The floor is always the best seat in the house. Eat when you're hungry, nap when you're full, and if someone complains, just bite their sandal. Words to live by. Eventually, the cats built him his own mini pyramid, not as a tomb, but as a giant royal nap chamber. Humans were assigned to fluff his cushions, refill his bowls, and keep the sunbeam angled perfectly across his belly. He didn't just live like a king, he lived like the king. And honestly, he deserved it. Because here's the thing, Pilo never pretended to be a hero. He never tried to be noble or selfless. He was just himself, adorable, lazy, sarcastic, and a little absurd. But somehow, that was exactly what Cat Egypt needed. His chaos became balance. His nonsense became wisdom. His naps became national holidays. And so, life went on in glorious absurdity. Cats debated politics while licking their paws. Humans meowed in alleys, proudly incompetent. The pyramids stood tall, not as symbols of order, but as monuments to the idea that sometimes the best plan is no plan at all. And Pilo? Well, on one particularly warm evening, as the sun dipped behind the golden dunes, he sprawled across his cushion, belly up, paws twitching in a dream. Two humans fanned him lazily, another offered him a half-chewed fish, and Pilo purred with contentment. In his dream, he was floating down the Nile on a giant milk jug, chasing an endless supply of sardines. Was he wise? Maybe. Was he ridiculous? Absolutely. But in the end, Pilo taught Egypt a lesson that still holds true: life is chaos, and chaos is beautiful, especially if you're fat, orange, and adorable enough to get away with it. And so, dear listener, if you ever feel like your life is a mess, like you're meowing off-key, biting the wrong sandal, or napping when you should be working, just remember Pilo. Because if an overweight orange cat can become the divine advisor of an entire civilization by being ridiculous, then maybe, just maybe, you're doing just fine. Now close your eyes, curl up in your metaphorical basket, and let the absurdity of the world rock you to sleep. For tomorrow, chaos will come again, and that's exactly how it should be. And so, the kingdom of Cat Egypt didn't fall apart, it thrived. Not because it got smarter, but because one chubby orange cat convinced everyone that chaos is sacred and stupidity can be divine. Honestly, that's the kind of wisdom we could all use. So the next time you feel like your life's a mess, your meows are off-key, you're biting the wrong sandal, or you're napping when you should be working, just remember Pilo. If he could become a legendary advisor by being lazy, sarcastic, and adorable, then you're doing just fine. If you enjoyed this absurd bedtime tale, don't forget to hit like, subscribe for more ridiculous stories, and share this with a friend who secretly thinks their cat is plotting world domination. Because, let's be honest, they probably are.